Okay. So, like I was saying, this is what the editor window. This is where you type your codes. You do most of what your codes. You write most of your syntaxes, your logics, and all that. This is where you do them. Now, moving away from this part, we have what we call the Project Explorer window. I hope you can see where my cursor is. Okay. So the name of your project is here, which is first program. When you expand it, there is a file called main.cpp. So you realize that this Project Explorer window holds a list of projects that you have in this IDE, and then you can explore them. When you move to the classes tabs, to whatever classes that you create within the project, you would see them here. Now, moving away from the Project Explorer window, we can also talk about the file menu. The menu bar where we have the file, edit, search, view, project, execute tools, and all these things. They are there to serve a purpose. And more often, you would be going to the file menu and then the execute menu. You will be using those very often. So pay attention to that. Now you could also change the font size, the fonts, and then even the theme of this IDE. How do you do that? Probably you go to, I think, the tools, and then you go to what? Your editor options. When you go there, you are able to change certain things regarding what this particular environment. Now there are also controls beneath this menu bar. The first one here is saying what? New. So you can use this to create a new file. We have the open. You can use that to open projects or files. We have the save. We have the save all, which is shift plus S, which is going to save every file that you have done some changes in. It is going to be what? Give you the room to save all those. Now we can also talk about the close. It is there. The close all these commands are there for you to explore. We wouldn't get time to explore everything, so it is now left to you to be able to do that on your own. Now you come to the far right here where we have, just beneath the menu bar, we have some icons. To the first one is what? Compile. The second one is run. The next one is what? Compile and run, which is similar to the ones we saw when we go to the execute menu, right? So the first four, all these commands are what lined up here for you. Okay, so that is that. Now you realize that where we have our editor, on your left pane there is a numbering. It is telling you basically the lines of codes that you have. So when you say, okay, there is an error on line 11, you go there, you'll be able to use this numbering to locate that. So that is about the numbering too. When I should hit enter right now, you see that now we have what? 13 lines. Go again, we have 14 lines and all that. So it tells you basically how many lines of code you have in your project. It can be 1,000, it can be 2,000 lines of code, and whatnot. Okay. Now we also have the, let me see, the console. Okay, so you let me not talk about this. So that is what I want to touch on for now. Those are the few things I want to touch on. Now let's explore the anatomy of this code snippets that we have here. Let's try to understand what each of them means, and then we can continue to explore other concepts. So the first line here, we are having what? Hashtag include space less than IO stream and then greater than. Now, what this means is that, any idea before I proceed? Any idea? Any idea?
Please come again with your question, sir.
So I'm asking. We are exploring these lines of code that we are seeing, right?
Yes, sir.
We want
Yes,
to
sir.
really understand what each of them means. So I'm
Okay.
asking that the first one, the first line, where we have the hashtag include IO stream, what does it mean? Any idea?
Please, I can say something a bit about the hashtag.
Okay.
So, with my knowledge from Python, when you put a hashtag in front of a line of code, or you put um, possession marks, it
When you do
simply
what?
means that line of code. When you put a hashtag in front of a line of code,
Uh-huh.
yeah, it simply means that line of code isn't going to function. It's only a comment. That's what it simply
That
means
is in what? In what language?
in Python.
Okay. That is fine. Any other input? So it means the header of the files that contains what? Let me switch to, that contains functions and commands. Okay, great. I hope you didn't go to copy this thing from Google or something. Okay, that is fine. So it is true, it contains some functions and commands, but basically anything that has to do with input and output, this line of code here is containing all those functions for you to be able to do input and output in your program. So in the absence of that, you can't do input, you can't do output. So Kennedy, I think, were you the one who said in Python is comment? So in this, it is actually a code. It's not a comment. It's a line of code. You need it for you to have your program running. Okay, so that is that. So the IO means, the I means input, the O means what? Output. So input output stream. That is what that line of code means. So include it in this current what? File or project. Now the second line saying that using namespace std. So a namespace is basically an approach in computer programming. It's an approach in computer programming that says, okay, there could be instances where you have the same names in multiple files, and you can reference a file in another file. You can reference a file in another file. So when it happens like that, if you have a name in one file that is also present in another file, the same name but they are doing different things, there is what is going to happen. There is something going to happen called collision. Something that collides. So there's going to be a collision. So when you use this namespace standard here, it tells the system that you should consider namespaces. So when there is a name in a particular file and then it is referenced in another file, make sure that they are unique to each of those files. Namespace std. So using namespace std. Now someone just asked, what is the essence of the hashtag? That is the convention of the language. So the include means that include the input output stream from the program's what? Library. Now you remember that we installed what? This ID. This ID contains so many files. So there is a language C++ and there's a language C. There are what we call binary files of the language that helps us to write our own language, and those have been installed on your system. So when you say include, it means go into the installed libraries and then include what? The IO stream. So the hashtag is just a way to tell the system that go and include this particular thing. So that is the language's what own convention. Now you have your name, you have a way we spell it. So if someone spelled it in a particular way and you said no, that is not how it's spelled, it is because that is how you are saying it should be spelled. So the one who created the language is saying that for you to use this thing, bring a hashtag. Okay, so let's continue. Now the next line here, this is a comment. This is a comment. Now a comment in programming basically means that when the program is executing from the top to the down, ignore this comment. You shouldn't add it to the program. So what is the essence of a comment? They are used to give clues or hints to a particular line of code that okay, this part here is doing this part here is doing that. We have different types of comment. We will see them whilst we progress, but know that this part here is a comment. Okay, now we also have this part, this whole part here, int main parenthesis open, then we have what, int argument character, another what, argument like that, and then parenthesis open. I don't want you to bother about this one right now. We would explain them when the time is due. But then what you have to note is that this int main here with this parenthesis or brackets open and close here, this is what we call a function. We call this a function. Now what is a function? A function is just a piece of code that does a particular thing or solves a particular what problem. A function is just a piece of code that solves a particular what problem. Okay, now how do we even denote a function? You realize that we have what we call a data type, the function name, parenthesis open, parenthesis close, there's a curly braces here, and there's a closing curly braces. In that we have this what snippet of code, and so we say this is what a function. So normally a function will have this sort of what structure. There will be the data type, there will be the function name, there will be parentheses open and close, and there will be some curly braces open and close. Now inside a function you do what we call function definition. Okay, so let's continue. Pascal, okay, you have a question? Let's hear from you.
Please, since my screen, I can't see on my screen. That's why
It seems what?
I can't have the picture of what you are showing on the screen.
Is it everybody or you alone?
Actually, I can't tell, but to me, I can't see actually what you are doing. Though I can hear your voice.
I'm trying to be available because I can
Come
see.
again?
It came and then it went over.
So someone is saying it's your network. So I think the person who is saying it's your network is seeing it clearly.
Oh, okay.
So
So kindly check your network.
can we leave and join again? Just leave and join again.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, so let's continue. So like I was saying, these are the few parts of the code that we have here. Let's try to understand the C out part. Now this C out is a keyword. You remember when I was explaining keywords yesterday, I told you these are reserved words. They are part of the programming language, and you can't use them to define variables or your function names. No, the system is not going to allow you. It will flag you, it will yell at you. So this is a keyword, and this less than 2 is also what part of the system's what or the language's structure. But then if you want to use it in your code, there is a way you have to make use of it. Maybe you want to display this as an output, you have to put it in a string. You would know what a string is in a bit, but understand that this C out here is a keyword. What does it mean? Yesterday I said it is called what? Or it is the meaning is what? Console out. Console out. It means that there is something going to be displayed in the console. So bring it out. So that's what it means. So this hello world here should be displayed. Should be displayed. That is basically what this command is used for. Now this less than is the system's own convention of how you can use the cout. Now you realize that just after that we opened what? Quotes, double quotes, and then there is a closing, there is an opening, and there is a closing. The reason why we do this is because hello world is what we call a string. Now a string in programming is basically sequence of characters. So when I say sequence of characters, when we pick your name for instance, so let me use someone's random name. Let me use, I think, Richie for instance. So Richie, you realize that we have R, we have I, C, H, I, E. Now R is a character, I is a character, C is a character, H, I, and then E. Together this forms a sequence of characters for us to have the name what? Richie. And so in programming we call this sequence of character a string. We call it what? A string. And then in computer programming, for you to represent a string in your program, the convention is that you put it in what? Double quotes, like so. Have I made myself clear? Is it understood? Great, 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 great. I love the response. I love the response. Now, having placed this in double quote like so, it means that this is a string going to be displayed on the screen just as we are seeing it. It will display hello world, we are learning C++. Now, at the end of the quote, double quote, we are saying that there is another less than, and then we bring this keyword end L, meaning what? End line, and then there is what? A semicolon. So basically what you have to understand is this is a syntax. This is the language's own way of what? Implementing things. You have to learn it and learn it the hard way. Yesterday I talked so much, yesterday and then the previous, I talked so much about what a syntax is. I talked so much about it. So it is the grammar of the language. So the grammar is saying that if you want to do something like so, this is the way to go about it. It is up to you to learn it. Okay, so one way we can also achieve this is to just say remove this end L part, less than end L part, and then have something simple like so. But what happens is, if for instance I have another line of code just beneath it, and then this is how it is. Let me just say second line of code. When I run this code, look at what happens. So I'll say compile. I believe you are following. Okay. So it is compiling. Look at your left pane here. You see there is an instruction saying that compiling. So abort compilation. So you can actually stop the compilation process, but let it finish. Okay, so the compilation process is done. What can we do? Let's run this code. So I'll go to this next command and then I'll just trigger the run. And then let's have a look. We have hello world. We are learning C++. And you could see that the second line of code is just continuing. There is not even a space. Now, it is because when you don't bring end L, the system is assuming that this second line of code is a continuation of the first one. So if you know that this is the end of this line and you want it, any code that comes after it should move to the next line, that is when we bring what? This end L part. Are we good? Great, 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 great. So this time around, when we run it, you realize that the second line of code will move to the next line. So let's run it for us to be very sure about what we are doing. Okay, so I think I need to compile this again. Compile it first. It was stated that C++ is quite faster and as compared to Python, yet compilation and execution takes quite a while. It's my machine, okay? It's my laptop. So I'm doing so many things with it. I've opened so many applications. I'm also doing recording. I'm also doing streaming. So many things going on. So the IDE or the compilation process is trying to use the CPU, the same CPU who is doing so many things to also do the compilation. So that is why. Okay. Yes. So sometimes you need a very high end machine to be doing some of these things. Okay. So we've been able to compile it. Let's run it. Oh, I thought I pressed run. I went to press on compile and run again. Okay. Great. So you realize that right now the second line is on a new line, and that is the essence of the end L. That is the essence of the end L. Are we good? Okay. 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 Great. 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 All right. Now, yesterday someone also mentioned something. What if you don't bring this part here and then you still want to achieve the end L thing? At the end of this C++, you see where my cursor is blinking? I can just do /n like so, and then let's compile and run this and see what we have, if it is the same output. Kingsley Agbeko, wait, I would get to you soon, okay? So realize that we are still getting the same result with the help of what? The / and then n. So this means that this should what? Have a new line just after it. So that is another way to also achieve the end L thing. Okay. Oh, okay. Kingsley, was that your question?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay, so let's hear from you. What were you
Sir, I wanted to ask
Speak
if,
a bit louder, okay?
all right, sir. Please, can you hear me? Is it all right now? Hello?
Yeah, speak a bit louder.
Yeah, so I'm saying that,
Mm-hmm.
so if you don't bring the NL
Mm-hmm.
and you leave about two spaces beneath your first line, is it still going to continue with the second line?
Okay, so the beneath like so.
Yeah, about two lines. Yeah.
Okay. So that
And,
is not going
and
to
you still
work
don't.
because the spaces you've left here, these are white spaces. They are just there to make your code look cleaner and more organized. Because if your codes are just jumbled up, let's say something like so, they are very close. Imagine you have 1,000 lines of code, it'll be very difficult to read. So those white spaces are just there for you to have readability and then clarity. So they don't affect your code. They don't affect how it works or how it runs. Make sense? Okay. So let's continue. So now let's touch on the other part that says return 0. Return 0. Return 0. What does it mean? Return 0. I was going to ask that. Thanks. Okay, okay. So someone said he was going to ask the same question and it has been explained. So that is that. Return 0. What does it mean? Any idea? Okay, so if there is no idea, let me just Peter Moa, you want to say something? Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes, we are listening.
Okay, so with the return 0,
Mm-hmm.
you're actually telling the system that when they get to that particular point,
Mm-hmm.
that will be the end point of it, of the whole function.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the end point.
Okay. Okay.
So when they get to that particular place, it can stop.
Okay.
And sometimes too, it's optional.
All right.
Uh,
All right.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Peter, for that one. So what happens when I only run without compiling? So I don't know if you observed when I did a change to the end L and then run the code again, it was still printing or displaying the first output. So until I compile again so that the system now knows I've done some changes to the code, it was still displaying what? The old code. I mean the old output. So when you compile, it is able to cater for the new changes you've done and then display it as such. Okay. Kingsley, understood? Alright. So compilation is very important. Sometimes when you do a lot of changes and you run the codes and you are not getting the output you want, you have to compile the whole codes again before you run it. Okay. Now, so I was basically on the return 0 and I asked what is the essence of it. So return 0, like is it Peter? I think Peter, yeah. Peter said it tells the function that this is the end of this particular execution. That is true. And then sometimes so it is optional. Great. But then there is a deeper understanding to why this return 0 is available. So let me explain it. You realize that we said this is a function, right? So int main with this bracket open and bracket close with the curly braces and then the closing part. This whole thing is a function. Now, anytime you have a function, okay, and the function has what we call a data type, the function has a data type attached to it, the function must return something. The function must return something. Mind you, we said that the function is just a snippet of code or a block of code that does a particular thing. So this function here is only executing this hello world thing that we've specified here. That is basically what it is doing. Now, it is having a special name called main. According to the language convention, this main function is supposed to be there, and this is where the execution of your entire project starts. So in the absence of this main function, your program is not going to work. It is not going to work. That is according to C++. You need to always have this in place. So when you go to define other files and classes and functions, you have to come and call them inside this main function. So I said this function is having a data type attached to, which is what? Int. So long as a data type is attached to this function, you must return something at the end of the day. So after this function has finished performing the functionalities that we've defined inside of it, it should just return 0 for us. Basically, that is what it means. So when we execute the code, it will do all these things and then stop executing by returning what? 0. So when I should run the code again, where is it? So when I should run this code, you realize that there is a where is it? Process exited after 0.9431 seconds. So this is the seconds it took to execute this code, and then it's returned with a value of what? 0. So it means that this function here is returning 0. When we advance in this particular whole learning process, we are going to define our own functions, and sometimes you would have to return some results. So you can define a function to add, let's say, 2 numbers. So when the 2 numbers are added, you have to return the result. So when you return the result, you can now decide to display the result or use it to do other things. So that is what the return statement means. So when the function finishes executing, do you want the function to return something, or it shouldn't return anything? Let's bring it to a more practical life. When you send someone to get something for you, the person would have to go. Okay. So the person would have to go and then what? Get whatever you ask the person to do for you, for the person to get it for you. Now, when a person should return and then came with an empty hand or something, you'll be like, I sent you, where is the thing that you're supposed to bring? That will be your question. It means the person didn't return anything. The person returned void. In program, we call it what? Void. So we will see that. But in this case, we are sending these functions to just print these things. When it is done, it should return 0 so that we know that it has finished what? Executing the code. So that is the return part as well. Up to this point, do we all understand? Do we all understand? Okay, great. 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 The line 5 should be there if you set it right. Okay, I think you are answering someone, right? Okay, so that is fine. Now, at the end of the session, I would say 1 or 2 things, because we have over 300 individuals in the group, and as it stands now, myself and then hello, yes, 31. We are having 31 here. So, with the exception of myself and then hello, it means we have 29 individuals. That is not encouraging. Yes, it is not encouraging at all. I have something to tell you guys. Maybe, well, let's see how it goes. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, Peter, I have something to say. Let's hear from you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. With the explanation that you just gave, with regards to return 0, I'm a bit confused. Because with the C out, we are saying that it should print out hello world. So wouldn't that one actually be the return itself?
No. No.
Okay.
Okay.
Then thank you.
So this is what I'm going to do. Look at something carefully, okay? Please, if you don't understand, don't be bothered. So what do you think will be the output of this code, Peter? You are unable to view it. Are you watching it from a phone? I mean, on a phone? Oh, okay. Can you see now? I actually zoomed in so that those of you who are viewing it from a smaller phone, you can see it clearly. Okay, so you think it will give the addition of 2 and 3. I'm particular about it. So Bright, you are right, but I want Peter to do that because he was confused. So let me run the code, compile and run. And then we are expecting to get 5 as the output, right? So let's see if that is what we are going to get. Can you see we have 5? Peter? Okay, so it means that, you see, we use this return keyword. We use the return keyword to say, okay, when A, which is 2 here, and then B, which is 3 here, is supplied, add the 2 numbers and return the addition. So that is what return does. Now supposing that I marked this function as void and then I was doing return, the program is going to yell at me because I can't return in a void. But because this function is marked as what? An integer, that is why we are having this return statement. So the main function here is marked as what? An integer. So it needs to return something. So because we are not performing any calculation, we say, okay, just return 0. And with that, we know the program has executed successfully. But here we are expecting something different from what? Other than 0. Okay, so we will look into functions more when we are done touching on the basics. So that is that. Okay, great. So let me wipe it and then that. Now what we are going to do is I've touched on few things. We've explored the various components of the C++ program. We've also touched on the interface a bit, and some other concepts have also been explained. Now we are going to look at syntax proper. Okay, we look at what? C++ syntax. C++ syntax. Now we can do something like so. What do you think will happen? What do you think will happen? Yes. Right, Alcon, let's hear from you.
If you compile it and run it, it will just show hello world.
Okay. So, okay. That is your input. Any other? Any other? So, in computer programming, okay, you don't just write codes. You have to pay attention to details. Even a comma, just a comma, can mess up your whole life. It can even take you 3 days, 4 days, even weeks to find that comma. now with the advent of AI, we can easily debug codes. You just copy the codes and give it to AI that why am I making mistake, and then it to correct it for you. But gone were the days you can take like days if you don't have an expert or a mentor who you can reach out to help you. It will take you a very long time to be able to spot the error. So paying attention to codes is also a skill you have to develop when you are writing computer programs. So Peter Moore is saying that the C is capital, which is wrong, and that is a good observation. That is a good observation. So it has to do with syntax. So the syntax is saying that we should use small c, like so, and this is the correct what approach. Does it make sense? Does it make sense? Okay. All right. Now, yesterday I also demonstrated something that if you want to get rid of this namespace thing and then you do this, this is not going to work. It will tell you that C out is not declared in the scope of this particular project. So for you to get this thing working, you would have to proceed with what? std : like so. And this is also another syntax you need to pay attention to. But this looks a bit weird, and that is why I said to simplify it, you just have to what? Include this thing or have the statement at the top here, and then you are good to go. Are we good? All right. So that is that. Now let me someone asked earlier what is the essence of this hashtag thing. Okay, I thought I've explained that, but let me go back and touch on this IO stream. This IO stream is also called a header file. It is also called what? A header file. So this is the heading or the header part of this particular project. So this here is a header file which is situated inside the language itself. So when you say include, it goes to pick this and then include it in your project. So you can also create your own files and then include it in your project. And those are advanced concepts. We would explore them if time permits us. So that is that. Now let's look at what we call let me comment out this. When we say C++ statement, so when we say a statement, we can say that these are basically instructions, okay, that would be executed by the computer. So when you put together all these instructions, we call them what? Statement. So we can have C out, another C out, variables and some functions. When you put all those things together, you have what we call a statement. So when we hear about what there is a statement here, what does it mean? It means there is an instruction here, there's a line of code here. What does it mean? So that is the meaning of what? Statement. So when you write a statement like so, it is very important that you end this particular statement with a semicolon. If you forget to do that, your program will not run. It means there is an error. It means there is an error. So that is what? A statement. And every statement needs what? A termination. You would have to terminate it. So this symbol here means what? Termination. Semicolon. Alright, so that is that. We can have multiple statements and say good evening, like so, and then you can say end L. So realize that for each of these statements, I am actually what? Ending with a semicolon, just to tell the program that this is the end of this statement. Are we good? Okay, so you can have as many statements, but you have to make sure that you terminate them. Very, very, very important. If you forget to do that, you are going to get an error. So that is that. Now, talking about, let me do commenting here. There's also a concept called what? Output. Now, what do we mean by output? So output basically means what? To display something. Okay, so in order to display something in C++, we use the cout statement. We've touched on this already. So I think it should be pretty straightforward. When you want to display something in the console using C++, use the cout statement, followed by what? The less than, and then whatever that you want to display. So I want to display whose name should I display? Kennedy wants me to display his name. Yo matter. So Kennedy, and then because this is the statement, you make sure you terminate it. So when I go ahead and then compile and run this code, we are going to see a text printed on the console, on the screen, saying Kennedy. So can you see Kennedy displayed here? You have Kennedy like that. Okay, great. So that is what. So this is what an output. We can also say that we want to just say cout, let's say 2, and then let me comment out this and see what we have. So we are getting what? 2. Now, if you are observing carefully, realize that for the 2, I didn't put it in double quotes. There's a reason why. For numbers, the system knows numbers. But for strings, the system doesn't know. Apart from the keywords that are part of the programming language itself, the system doesn't know Kennedy. The system doesn't know good evening. So with that, you would have to put them in quotes. But for numbers, the system knows numbers, so there's no need for you to put numbers in double quotes, unless you want to print this one as a string. But by default, when you want to print numbers, you don't put them in quotes. Okay. So sir, after you run, what we have on the IDE so far are the strings that begin with going to show or display. No, they are not going to display because those are comments. They are comments. That is why they are not being displayed. They are comments. So I'll touch on comments probably tomorrow or in our next meetings, right? Yeah, so that is that. Now Kennedy is saying that what if you add 2 integers or calculate 2 integers? Yes, you don't need to put them in quotes. So I can just do here cout 2 plus 3, and then I'll get 5. Does it make sense? Alright. So what if you put numbers in quotes? Will the code not run? It will run, but it will print those just as it is. So when I put these things here in quotes, it will print 2 plus 3 on the screen, not the result. So just observe. So just observe carefully. you'll see 2 plus 3 displayed on the screen. Can you see it? Yes, and that is because we placed it in what? Double quote. But if you want the result instead, which is 5, you remove them from the quote. Okay, so that is that about output. So we've touched on what? Syntax. We've looked at what statement is. We've also looked at what output means. Okay, now we would continue hopefully tomorrow to look at printing numbers. Even that one I've touched on a couple of them already, where we have 2 plus 3 and all that. So you can do something like, so let me use end L here, copy it over, and then I'll change the addition symbol to maybe a minus. I'll paste. I'll change to maybe a division. I'll change to multiplication, and then we also have what we call the modulo operator. So with this, when I go ahead and compile and run, we are going to see all the outputs. You see we are getting all the results that we want. You see we are getting them? Yes. So that is that about how to print numbers. So it is not only what whole numbers. You can do maybe 3.5, 2.0, 2.1, 0.5, like all those. You can even do negative numbers. So how about booleans? So please, we will get there. Okay, we are moving in a stepwise direction. We don't want to jump from A and then get to Z. So Kennedy, relax. Okay, we'll get to booleans. Okay, so that is that. So let me caption this one. Printing numbers. So I can say maybe this one is 3.2, 0.3, 0.3, like that. Okay, so that is that. Now we would also want to talk about how do you call it, new lines. Even that one, I've done that already, where I did something like so. So see out, say this is a new line, then I did /n, right? I did this. We've done that already. And then the other way was to use the end L statement, was to use this is another new line. So these are what, when you want to get new lines, this is how you go about them. So this is one approach, this is another approach. Okay, so that is that. Now if you want to have double lines, you can do //, //n, //n, and then you are going to get this double new line. There are other ones like tabs. Okay, so see out, this is a tab. So what will happen is you do / here, and then you say T, right? You say T, and then this is going to leave a very huge space between the A and then the tab. So this /T here means what? Tab. Okay, so those are few things. We are going to end here and then continue tomorrow. So when tomorrow we meet, we will continue with what? Continue to look at comments. we look at variables, and then when we understand variables proper, then we will start accepting what we call user input. We'll deal with user input, and then we'll build on the knowledge like that. So this is where we will end today. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right. So are there questions that we need to touch on? Maybe 2 or 3 questions. So just like you added a 2 plus 3, can you use a comment to say A equals to and B is equal to, and say C out? No. It won't work. So using that approach, it won't work. So what you did is a comment. So you would get to see, but the program would see it, alright, but because it sees it as a comment, it will not print it out. So what will happen is you will just see A plus B printed in the console. That is what you will see. So Kennedy, that is that. Kingsley, that is that. Yes, any other question? If there are no questions, we call it day. Okay. Donatus Ayariga, I'm glad you acknowledge that. I'm most humbled and ready to help you guys, Yes. Any other? If there are questions, we can call it a day. But I said I was going to say something, right? Okay. I've heard you. Let your question come. I'll be ready to receive them. I'll be on standby. Yes, I said I have a message. So let me do something first. So this is the end of today's meeting. Thank you for coming.